Chapter 4. I took my boat out that night after work to get away from Deb's questions and to sort through what I was feeling. Feeling, what a concept. I nosed my whaler slowly out the canal, thinking nothing, a perfect zen state, moving at idle speed past the large houses, all separated from each other by high hedges and chain link fences. I threw an automatic big wave and bright smile to all the neighbors out in their yards that grew neatly up to the canal seawall. Kids playing on the manicured grass, mom and dad barbecuing or lounging or polishing the barbed wire, hawkeyes on the kids. I waved to everybody, some of them even waved back. They knew me, had seen me go by before, always cheerful, a big hello for everybody. He was such a nice man, very friendly. I can't believe he did those horrible things. I opened up the throttle when I cleared the canal, heading out the channel and then southeast toward Cape Florida. The wind in my face and the taste of the salt spray helped clear my head, made me feel clean and a little fresher. I found it a great deal easier to think. Part of it was the calm and peace of the water. And another part was that in the best tradition of Miami watercraft, most of the other boaters seemed to be trying to kill me. I found that very relaxing. I was right at home. This is my country. These are my people. All day long at work, I'd gotten little forensic updates. Around lunchtime, the story broke national. The lid was coming off the Hooker murders after the grisly discovery at the Cacique Motel. Channel 7 had done a masterful job of presenting all the hysterical horror of body parts in a dumpster without actually saying anything about them. As Detective Lagota had shrewdly observed, these were only hookers, but once public pressure started to rise from the media, they might as well be senators' daughters. And so the department began to gear up for a long spell of defensive maneuvering, knowing exactly what kind of heartrending twaddle would be coming from the brave and fearless foot soldiers of Fifth Estate. Deb had stayed at the scene until the captain began to worry about authorizing too much overtime, and then she'd been sent home. She started calling me at 2 in the afternoon to hear what I'd discovered, which was very little. They'd found no traces of anything at the motel. There were so many tire tracks in the parking lot that none were distinct. No prints or traces in the dumpster, on the bags, or on the body parts. Everything USDA inspection clean. The one big clue of the day was the left leg. As Angel had noticed, the right leg had been sectioned into several neat pieces, cut at the hip, knee, and ankle. But the left leg was not. It was a mere 2 sections neatly wrapped. Aha, said Detective Lagota, Lady Genius. Somebody had interrupted the killer, surprised him, startled him, so he did not finish the cut. He panicked when he was seen. And she directed all her effort at finding that witness. There was one small problem with Lagota's theory of interruption. A tiny little thing, perhaps splitting hairs, but entire body had still been meticulously cleaned and wrapped, presumably after it had been cut up. And then it had been transported carefully to the dumpster, apparently with enough time and focus for the killer to make no mistakes and leave no traces. Either nobody pointed this out to Laguerre, or wonder of wonders. Could it be that nobody else had noticed? Possible. So much of police work is routine, fitting details into patterns. And if the pattern was brand new, the investigation could seem like 3 blind men examining an elephant with a microscope. But since I was neither blind nor hampered by routine, it had seemed far more likely to me that the killer was simply unsatisfied. Plenty of time to work, but thighs was the 5th murder in the same pattern. Was it getting boring, simply chopping up the body? Was our boy searching for something else, something different, some new direction, an untried twist? I could almost feel his frustration to have come so far, all the way to the end, sectioning the leftovers for gift wrapping. And then the sudden realization, this isn't it, something is just not right, coitus interruptus. It wasn't fulfilling him this way anymore. He needed a different approach. He was trying to express something and hadn't found his vocabulary yet. And in my personal opinion, I mean, if it was myth, it would make him very frustrated and very likely to look further for the answer. Soon, but let Laguerre to look for a witness. There would be none. This was a cold, careful monster, and absolutely fascinating to me. And what should I do about that fascination? I was not sure, so I had retreated to my boat to think. A donzi cut across my bow at 70 miles per hour, only inches away. I waved happily and returned to the present. I was approaching Stiltsville, the mostly abandoned collection of old stilt homes in the water near Cape Florida. I nosed into a big circle, going nowhere, and let my thoughts move back into that same slow arc. What would I do? I needed to decide now, before I got too helpful for Deborah. I could help her solve this, absolutely, no one better. Nobody else was even moving in the right direction, but did I want to help? Did I want this killer arrested? Or did I want to find him and stop him myself? Beyond this, nagging little thought, did I even want him to stop? What would I do? To my right, I could just see Elliott Key in the last light of the day. And as always, I remembered my camping trip there with Harry Morgan. My foster father, the good cop. You're different, Dexter. Yes, Harry, I certainly am. But you can learn to control that difference and use it constructively. All right, Harry, if you think I should. How? And he told me, there is no starry sky anywhere like the starry sky in South Florida when you are 14 and camping out with Dad. Even if he's only your foster dad, and even if the sight of all those stars merely fills you with a kind of satisfaction, emotion being out of the question. You don't feel it, that's part of the reason you're here. The fire has died down and the stars are exceedingly bright, and foster dear old Dad has been quiet for some time, taking small sips on the old-fashioned hip flask he has pulled from the outside flap of his pack, and he's not very good at this, not like so many other cops, not really a drinker. But it's empty now, and it's time for him to say his piece if he's ever going to say it. You're different, Dexter, he says. I look away from the brightness of the stars. Around the small and sandy clearing, the last glow of the fire is making shadows. Some of them trickle across Harry's face. He looks strange to me, like I've never seen him before. Determined, unhappy, a little dazed. What do you mean, Dad? He won't look at me. The Billups say Buddy has disappeared, he says. Noisy little creep. He was barking all night. Mom couldn't sleep. Mom needed her sleep, of course. Dying of cancer requires plenty of rest, and she wasn't getting it with that awful little dog across the street, yapping at every leaf that blew down the sidewalk. I found the grave, Harry says. There were a lot of bones in there, Dexter, not just Buddy's. There's very little to say here. I carefully pull out a handful of pine needles and wait for Harry. How long have you been doing this? I search Harry's face, then look out across the clearing to the beach. Our boat is there, moving gently with the surge of the water. The lights of Miami are off to the right, a soft white glow. I can't figure out where Harry is going, what he wants to hear. But he is my straight, arrow foster dad. The truth is usually a good idea with Harry. He always knows, or he finds out. A year and a half, I say. Harry nods. Why did you start? A very good question, and certainly beyond me at 14. It just I kind of had to, I tell him. Even then, so young but so smooth. Do you hear a voice? He wants to know. Something or somebody telling you what to do, and you had to do it. I say with 14-year-old eloquence, not exactly. Tell me, Harry says. Oh, for a moon, a good fat moon, something bigger to look at. I clutch another fistful of pine needles. My face is hot, as if Dad has asked me to talk about sex dreams, which in a way I kind of, feel something, I say. Inside, watching me, maybe laughing, but not really a voice, just an eloquent teenage shrug. But it seems to make sense to Harry, and this something, it makes you kill things. High overhead, a slow fat jet crawls by. Not, doesn't make me, I say, just makes it seem like a good idea. Have you ever wanted to kill something else? Something bigger than a dog? I try to answer, but there is something in my throat. I clear it. Yes, I say. A person, nobody in particular, Dad. Just I shrug again. Why didn't you? It's I thought you wouldn't like it. You and Mom, that's all that stopped you. I didn't want you, mad at me, disappointed. I steal a glance at Harry. He is looking at me, not blinking. Is that why we took this trip, Dad? To talk about this, yes, Harry says, we need to get you squared away. Squared away, oh yes, a completely Harry idea of how life is lived with hospital corners and polished shoes. And even then I knew, needing to kill something every now and then would pretty much sooner or later get in the way of being squared away. How, I say, and he looks at me long and hard, and then he nods when he sees that I am with him step for step. Good boy, he says, now, and in spite of saying now, it is a very long time before he speaks again. I watch the lights on a boat as it goes past, maybe 200 yards out from our little beach. Over the sound of their motor, a radio is blasting Cuban music. Now Harry says again, and I look at him, but he is looking away across the dying fire, off into the future over there somewhere. It's like this, he says. I listen carefully. This is what Harry says when he is giving you a higher order truth. When he showed me how to throw a curveball and how to throw a left hook, it's like this, he would say, and it always was, just like that. I'm getting old, Dexter. He waited for me to object, but I didn't, and he nodded. I think people understand things different when they get older, he says. It's not a question of getting soft or seeing things in the gray areas instead of black and white. I really believe I'm just understanding things different, better. He looks at me, Harry's look, tough love with blue eyes. Okay, I say, 10 years ago I would have wanted you in an institution somewhere, he says, and I blink. That almost hurts, except I've thought of it myself. Now, he says, I think I know better. I know what you are, and I know you're a good kid. No, I say, and it comes out very soft and weak, but Harry hears. Yes, he says firmly, you're a good kid, Dex, I know that. I know it almost to himself now, for effect maybe, and then his eyes lock onto mine. Otherwise, you wouldn't care what I thought, or what Mom thought. You just do it, you can't help it, I know that. Because he stops and just looks at me for a moment. It's very uncomfortable for me. What do you remember from before, he asked, before we took you in. That still hurts, but I really don't know why. I was only 3, nothing. Good, he says, nobody should remember that. And as long as he lives, that will be the most he ever says about it. But even though you don't remember, Dex, it did things to you. Those things make you what you are. I've talked to some people about this, and strangest of strange, he gives me a very small, almost shy, hairy smile. I've been expecting this. What happened to you when you were a little kid has shaped you. I've tried to straighten that out, but he shrugs. It was too strong, too much. It got into you too early, and it's going to stay there. It's going to make you want to kill. And you can't help that. You can't change that. But, he says, and he looks away again to see what I can't tell. But you can channel it, control it. Choose, his words come so carefully now, more careful than I've ever heard him talk. Choose what or who you kill, and he gave me a smile unlike any I had ever seen before. A smile as bleak and dry, the ashes of our dying fire. There are plenty of people who deserve it. Dex, and with those few little words he gave a shape to my whole life, my everything, my who and what I am. The wonderful, all-seeing, all-knowing man, Harry, my dad. If only I was capable of love, how I would have loved Harry. So long ago now, Harry long dead, but his lessons had lived on, not because of any warm and gooey emotional feelings I had. Because Harry was right. I'd proved that over and over. Harry knew, and Harry taught me well. Be careful, Harry said. And he taught me to be careful, as only a cop could teach a killer. To choose carefully among those who deserved it. To make absolutely sure, then tidy up, leave no traces, and always avoid emotional involvement. It can lead to mistakes. Being careful went beyond the actual killing, of course. Being careful meant building a careful life, too. Compartmentalize, socialize, imitate life, all of which I had done so very carefully. I was a near-perfect hologram. Above suspicion, beyond reproach, and beneath contempt, a neat and polite monster, the boy next door. Even Deborah was at least half fooled, half the time. Of course, she believed what she wanted to believe, too. Right now she believed I could help her solve these murders, start her career and catapult her out of her Hollywood sex suit and into a tailored business suit. And she was right, of course. I could help her. But I didn't really want to, because I enjoyed watching this other killer work and felt some kind of aesthetic connection or emotional involvement. Well, there it was. I was in clear violation of the code of Harry. I nosed the boat back toward my canal. It was full dark now, but I steered by a radio tower a few degrees to the left of my home water. So be it. Harry had always been right. He was right now. Don't get emotionally involved, Harry had said, so I wouldn't. I would held Deb. Chapter 5. The next morning, it was raining and the traffic was crazy, like it always is in Miami when it rains. Some drivers slowed down on the slick roads. That made others furious, and they leaned on their horns, screamed out their windows, and accelerated out onto the shoulder, fishtailing wildly past the slowpokes and waving their fists. At the lagoon on-ramp, a huge dairy truck had roared onto the shoulder and hit a van full of kids from a Catholic school. The dairy truck flipped over, and now 5 young girls in plaid wool skirts were sitting in a huge puddle of milk with dazed looks on their faces. Traffic nearly stopped for an hour. One kid was airlifted to Jackson Hospital. The others sat in the milk in their uniforms and watched the grown-ups scream at each other. I inched along placidly, listening to the radio. Apparently the police were hot on the trail of the Tamiami butcher. There were no specifics available, but Captain Matthews got a lovely sound bite. He made it seem like he would personally make the arrest as soon as he finished his coffee. I finally got off onto surface roads and went only a little faster. I stopped at a donut shop not too far from the airport. I bought an apple fritter and a cruller, but the apple fritter was gone almost before I got back into the car. I have a very high metabolism. It comes with living the good life. The rain had stopped by the time I got to work. The sun shone and steam rose from the pavement as I walked into the lobby, flashed my credentials, and went upstairs. Deb was already waiting for me. She did not look happy this morning. Of course, she does not look happy very often anymore. She's a cop, after all, and most of them can't manage the trick at all. Too much time on duty trying not to look human. It leaves their faces stuck. Deb, I said. I put the crisp white pastry bag on my desk. Where were you last night? She said, very sour, as I'd expected. Soon those frown lines would turn permanent, ruining a wonderful face, deep blue eyes, alive with intelligence, and small upturned nose with just a dash of freckles, framed by black hair. Beautiful features, at the moment spattered with about 7 pounds of cheap makeup. I looked at her with fondness. She was clearly coming from work, dressed today in a lacy bra, bright pink spandex shorts, and gold high heels. Never mind me, I said. Where were you? She flushed. She hated to wear anything but clean, pressed blues. I tried to call you, she said. Sorry, I said. Yeah, sure. I sat down in my chair and didn't speak. Deb likes to unload on me. That's what family is for. Why were you so anxious to talk to me? They're shutting me out, she said. She opened my donut bag and looked inside. What did you expect? I said. You know how Lagerta feels about you. She pulled the cruller out of the bag and savaged it. I expect, she said, mouth full, to be in on this. Like the captain said, you don't have any seniority, I said, or any political smarts. She crumpled the bag and threw it at my head. She missed Goddamn it, Dexter, she said. You know damned well I deserve to be in homicide. Instead of she snapped her bra strap and waved a hand at her skimpy costume. This bullshit, I nodded. Although on you it looks good, I said. She made an awful face, rage and disgust competing for space. I hate this, she said. I can't do this much longer or I swear I'll go nuts. It's a little soon for me to have the whole thing figured out, Deb. Shit, she said. Whatever else you could say about police work, it was ruining Deborah's vocabulary. She gave me a cold, hard cop look, the first I'd ever had from her. It was Harry's look, the same eyes, same feeling of looking right through you to the truth. Don't bullshit me, Dex, she said. All you have to do half the time is see the body, and you know who did it. I never asked you how you do that, but if you have any hunches on this one, I want him. She kicked out savagely and put a small dent in my metal desk. Goddamn it, I want out of this stupid outfit, and we'd all love to see that, Morgan, came a deep and phony voice from behind her in the doorway. I looked up. Vince Masuoka was smiling in at us. You wouldn't know what to do, Vince, Deb told him. He smiled bigger, that bright, fake, textbook smile. Why don't we try it and find out? In your dreams, Vince, Debbie said, slumping into a pout that I hadn't seen since she was 12. Vince nodded at the crumpled white bag on my desk. It was your turn, goody. What you bring me, where is it? Sorry, Vince, I said. Debbie ate your cruller. I wish, he said, with his sharp imitation leer, then I could eat her jelly roll. You owe me a big donut, Dex, he said. The only big one you'll ever have, Deborah said. It's not the size of the donut, it's the skill of the baker, Vince told her. Please, I said. You two are going to sprain a frontal lobe. It's too early to be this clever. Aha, Vince said, with his terrible fake laugh. Aha ha ha, see you later. He winked. Don't forget my donut, and he wandered away to his microscope down the hall. So what have you figured out? Deb asked me. Deb believed that every now and then I got hunches she had reason to believe. Usually my inspired guess had to do with the brutal wackos who liked to hack up some poor slob every few weeks just for the hell of it. Several times Deborah had seen me put a quick and clean finger on something that nobody else knew was there. She had never said anything, but my sister is a damned good cop, and so she has suspected me of something for quite a while. She doesn't know what, but she knows there is something wrong there, and it bothers the hell out of her every now and then, because she does, after all, love me. The last living thing on the earth that does love me. This is not self-pity, but the coldest, clearest self-knowledge. I am unlovable. Following Harry's plan, I've tried to involve myself in other people, in relationships, and even in my sillier moment, sin love. But it doesn't work. Something in me is broken or missing, and sooner or later, the other person catches me acting, or one of those nights comes along. I can't even keep pets. Animals hate me. I bought a dog once. It barked and howled at me in a non-stop no-mind fury for 2 days before I had to get rid of it. I tried a turtle. I touched it once, and it wouldn't come out of its shell again, and after a few days of that it died. Rather than see me or have me touch it again, it died. Nothing else loves me, or ever will, not even especially. I know what I am, and that is not a thing to love. I am alone in the world, all alone, but for Deborah. Except, of course, for the thing inside, who does not come out to play too often, and does not actually play with me, but must have somebody else. So as much as I can, I care about her, dear Deborah. It is probably not love, but I would rather she were happy. And she sat there, dear Deborah, looking unhappy, my family, staring at me and not knowing what to say, but coming closer to saying it than ever before. Well, I said, actually I knew it. You do have something. Don't interrupt my trance, Deborah. I'm in touch with the spirit realm. Spit it out, she said. It's the interrupted cut, Deb. The left leg. What about it? La Goethe thinks the killer was discovered. Got nervous, didn't finish. Deborah nodded. She had me asking hookers last night if they saw anything. Somebody must have. Oh, not you too, I said. Think, Deborah. If he was interrupted, too scared to finish the wrapping, she blurted. He still spent a lot of time wrapping the body, cleaning up. She looked surprised, shit, after he was interrupted. I clapped my hands and beamed at her. Bravo, Miss Marple. Then it doesn't make sense, au contraire. If there is plenty of time, but the ritual is not completed properly, and remember, Deb, the ritual is nearly everything. What's the implication? Why can't you just tell me, for God's sake, she snapped. What fun would that be? She blew out a hard breath. Goddamn it, all right, Dex, if he wasn't interrupted, but he didn't finish shit. The wrapping up part was more important than the cutting. I took pity on her. No, Deb, think, this is the 5th one, exactly like all the others. 4 left legs cut perfectly. And now number 5, I shrugged, raised an eyebrow at her. Aw shit, Dexter, how should I know? Maybe he only needed 4 left legs. Maybe, I don't know, I swear to God. What? I smiled and shook my head. To me it was so clear. The thrill is gone, Deb. Something just isn't right. It isn't working. Some essential bit of the magic that makes it perfect isn't there. I was supposed to figure that out. Somebody should, don't you think? And so he just sort of dribbles to a stop, looking for inspiration and finding none. She frowned. So he's done. He won't do this again. I laughed. Oh my God, no, Deb. Just the opposite. If you were a priest and you truly believed in God but couldn't find the right way to worship him, what would you do? Keep trying, she said, until I got it right. She stared hard. Jesus, that's what you think. He's going to do it again, soon. It's just a hunch, I said modestly. I could be wrong, but I was sure I was not wrong. We should be setting up a way to catch him when he does, she said. Not looking for a non-existent witness, she stood and headed out the door. I'll call later. Bye, and she was gone. I poked at the white paper bag. There was nothing left inside, just like me, a clean, crisp outside and nothing at all on the inside. I folded the bag and placed it in the trash can beside my desk. There was work to do this morning, real official police lab work. I had a long report to type up, accompanying pictures to sort, evidence to file. It was routine stuff, a double homicide that would probably never go to trial. But I like to make sure that whatever I touch is well organized. Besides, this one had been interesting. The blood spatter had been very difficult to read. Between the arterial spurting, the multiple victims obviously moving around, and the cast-off pattern from what had to be a chainsaw, it had been almost impossible to find an impact site. In order to cover the whole room, I'd had to use 2 bottles of luminol, which reveals even the faintest of blood spots, and is shockingly expensive at $12 a bottle. I'd actually had to lay out strings to help me figure the primary spatter angles, a technique ancient enough to seem like alchemy. The splat patterns were startling, vivid. There were bright, wild, feral splatters across the walls, furniture, television, towels, bedspreads, curtains, an amazing wild horror of flying blood. Even in Miami, you would think someone would have heard something. 2 people being hacked up alive with a chainsaw in an elegant and expensive hotel room, and the neighbors simply turned up their TV. You may say that dear diligent Dexter gets carried away in his job, but I like to be thorough, and I like to know where all the blood is hiding. The professional reasons for this are obvious, but not quite as important to me as the personal ones. Perhaps someday, a psychiatrist retained by the state penal system will help me discover exactly why. In any case, the body chunks were very cold by the time we got to the scene, and we would probably never find the guy in the size 7 handmade Italian loafer. Right-handed and overweight, with a terrific backhand. But I had persevered and done a very neat piece of work. I don't do my job to catch the bad guys. Why would I want to do that? No, I do my job to make order out of chaos. To force the nasty blood stains to behave properly and then go away. Others may use my work to catch criminals. That's fine by me, but it doesn't matter. If I am ever careless enough to be caught, they will say I am a sociopathic monster, a sick and twisted demon who is not even human, and they will probably send me to die an old Sparky with a smuggy, self-righteous glow. If they ever catch size 7, they will say he is a bad man who went wrong because of social force. He was too unfortunate to resist, and he will go to jail for 10 years before they turn him loose. With enough money for a suit and a new chainsaw, every day at work I understand Harry a little better.